Welcome, everybody. Good evening. My name is George Franklin. If you don't know me, I've got 3 books out with Sheila-Na-Gig, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here co-hosting this event with Haley Mitchell Haugen. And I'm amazed at the lineup here tonight. And it's a great community. And if you haven't been before to a Sheila-Na-Gig reading, I think you immediately sense the feeling of family and community that's here. And it's always wonderful. Tonight, we are amazed and thrilled to have Alissa Sammarco with us. She has a new book out and that she will read from, I hope. And she's an attorney. So she brings together 2 different worlds, which I understand because I'm a lawyer too. So you see that in her work, and it's one of the things that impresses me the most about her work is how she brings these these opposites together, or what we think of as opposites, and shows us that they're not. She lives in the Ohio River Valley, but she's lived in the West and the South. Her work has been published in Orchard, Street Press's Quiet Diamonds, Sheila-Na-Gig Online, Black Moon Magazine, Change 7. But There Was a Fire in the Distance, that's Workhorse Press, Evening Street Review, Main Street Rag, Hags on Fire, Stone Canoe, and the online arts journal, whose name I can't pronounce, but I guess it's a set of initials, AEQAI. So I leave that with you. But welcome, Alissa. It's just a thrill to have you here. And after Alissa reads, we're going to have an open mic reading, and which is just also going to be amazing. So thank you. And Alissa, take it away.
Thank you so much for that introduction. That particular magazine is an online magazine for the arts. It's covered arts here in Cincinnati for some time, and was gracious enough to publish one of my poems some time ago. It's called Akai. So,
but now I know.
Now it's unusual, but that's what it is. So thank you so much. Yes, this is actually my debut, or first, for those of us who use small words, poetry collection. And I'm just absolutely thrilled. I have been writing, and it's been a dream of mine and a goal of mine to publish my work since probably I was a little tiny girl. And then I really, we go through life and you stop writing and then raise kids and have family and have a career and do all those other things. And then all of a sudden, the genie pops out of the bottle and you just can't put that lid back on for every little thing you try. So here we are. And I so appreciate everybody who here and will listen to some of my pieces. The book is called Beyond the Dawn. I am going to pop that into the chat right now. See if that happens. It's available on Amazon, or you can always contact me directly. But I want to start with something a little zippier, and then I'm going to talk about the book a little bit. I was talking with a friend and threatened to read some new things, so I made an effort to write something outside of what I usually do, and I tried something. The first thing I'm going to read is tried something akin to a beat poem. So let me just read it, and y'all can let me know what you think of it. I got my inspiration at the Walmart. Where else could I have seen real life unfold other than the Walmart on the floodplain by the railroad tracks where I used to shop for records, the original discount store? I bought Beatles records, the White Album, and Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts, spun, needle scratched in grooves, where I could go see fat-bottom girls on bicycles while Queen rode through Bohemian Rhapsody. No, Kiss me under the bleachers, behind the dumpster, in the back seat of a Chevy at the drive-in. Giant creatures battling for domination, and your hand slipped over my breast, maybe south of there. But the Walmart still has McDonald's, still has big mamas smacking their children, and blue jeans rumpled on shelves, and fake Nike sneakers and orange cheese puffs, and Coca-Cola. Where else could I find you since the days when this place flooded and the train rattled by, blowing its whistle? Thank you. And I want to read one other new piece. And for those of you who know any or have read any of my work, and I know there's a few folks I've been in workshops with, a lot of my work is, probably almost all of it is freestyle. I guess that's what you call it. But I tried my hand, if I can find where I put it. There it is. I tried my hand at a form poem that I have never done before, at least not one that I would ever admit to or read to anybody or even try and revise. I wrote a sonnet, and everybody goes, oh, I've written sonnets, gosh, but this is new for me. So let me read this to you. It is written in response to the rattle prompt from a week ago, which was write a sequel to someone else's poem. And I had been reading William DeVault's Liaison, which, if you've ever read any of William DeVault's work, can be very racy or sexy. So this is sequel to that book, and I couldn't put it to any one particular poem in that book. After the lovemaking. And the morning is meant for lovemaking, soft abundance, taking you in one more time, again and again. Small fractures, like tectonic plates, rub raw our bodies and our hearts until so little is left. Tutelage transposing numbers on ledgers, keeping two sets of books to cheat the taxman with gold-lined suits. You stocked all of it away in coffers, filled with my blood, the tears of children left alone, the wealth you gathered as you creeped behind me, clipping holes in my pockets, wooden nickels, all of it gone with the strike of a match, my fingers blue, flaming. So thank you for listening to that. I want to talk a little bit about my book, because I'm absolutely thrilled to death about this. It is, I'm going to show you the cover, if we can see that. Is that there? With my background, I don't know if you can see it. Cover art is done by a local artist here by the name of Susan Crew, and she's done, she just does these wonderful designs. And the book is really a book of love poems. And I have a description of it. I'll just read it. Beyond the Dawn is about two lovers. And I always like to say, come, let me take you on a journey with these two lovers, from romance and honeymoon through their unsettled domesticity. When you read this book, you will see it's like a vignette in verse. You will follow them as you follow most relationships, from one season to another season. So let me talk just a little bit about it, because it does start on a honeymoon, and it starts in as they leave for honeymoon. And you all might have known a relationship that starts this way. Martin asked, the first poem is called Sitting on the Veranda. Martin asked Jane, do you want another? They drank gin martinis. She complained about the wind messing with her hair, but he didn't care. He just wanted to get blasted. Traveling together. Pack your bag and I will come find you with your brown striped case waiting for the rain to stop. You brought a brush for your hair, razor for your chin, a cap for your head, and 2 tickets. My bag is packed with sparkles. And as they leave for their honeymoon, cruising past Cuba, Hemingway would not approve. His boat was not a ship, and his sail was on a fish. But if he were here, he would drink with us and watch Cuba slide by. As the winds blow across the bow, the weather hits, tossing us like pennies in a jar. He would drink with us and shout at us in hard voices, then come back and drink again, saying, "Having a rough time, old boy? It is as it should be." And of course, they visit different places. Belize City. With its afternoon rains, the people walk through it, no rush home. It is time for gathering in the street, in doorways against the mud, and sandwiches for schoolgirls who come home from the nuns in their white dresses and colorful sashes. They will return at 2 for their lessons, but there is no hurry here where the rain comes and goes. It comes and goes. Now, we've all been through relationships, so there are parts of relationships which get a little more intense and a little more longing, sometimes a little more sensual, sometimes, I hope, more than sometimes for most of us, I hope. Unexpected. A moment we missed. You kept it, and like a schoolboy passed a note to the girl in the front row, pretending not to know how your eyes traced the curve of her neck. I took that note, slipped it in my pocket, savoring it. And sunbathing. Bare knees and rolled up jeans, unconditionally tan from shelling in that cove. Sun touching sea, interrupted by a curl, a lip turned up, then down again, sea foam lapping languid tongues against the shore, catching treasures on her soft belly, sunbathing beneath the cliff. But the poem has some more lyrical and maybe some questions about the relationship. There's this particular poem I enjoy because I think it could be a song. I think I would love it to be a song, and I always say if there's anybody out there with musical talent, and I'd love to talk to you about creating a song for this. Nashville. You caught me at 3 a.m. chatting with my secret friend. Insomnia hides my dreams of Nashville and lovers' scenes. While writing in the dark, lines jarred and broken, words still yet unspoken, and always I'd rather be sleeping. Your hand resting on mine, your chest rising with my breath. That is my Nashville. I have to read this one because it's a little racy too. Things forbidden. The smell of summer, green and yellow, sweet as fresh picked corn. I lit a fire and watched flesh melt, the irresistible smell of beef fat as it drips, flames leap, round, searing shapes as sensuous as youth. Yet never does that first mouthful compare to the aching, all the while I thought of things forbidden. And as you might have guessed, these are very short poems in this book, but if you actually read them together, it makes a little story. In terms of short poems, this is one of my favorites. Christmas oranges. The bourbon on your tongue tastes sweet like Christmas oranges. With each taste, I am consumed by you. And I can't leave this book without reading you the title poem. Beyond the dawn, those beautiful things you say to me in the hours when dark is dark and we exchange sighs. How do I love beyond the dawn when they fade like shadows? So I can't read it all because I don't want to give it all away. You have to buy the book. But I would like to share a couple other new pieces with you. Uh-oh. Is everybody still there? Yeah. I'm always working on new things, and I went through a period of time, the last year and 2 years, where I wrote a lot of very unhappy poems about strife. And I think right now I'm in this place where I'm writing about, well, love, obviously. So I want to read some of these happy poems. And we'll start with this one. 100 love poems. At dinner, you promised them to me. Our favorite waitress cried when I showed her the ring. She must have known. They all must have known. And I tried my best not to guess what you were up to. 100 kisses. I covered your face and neck and hands with them. Over desert roses, spindly and pale, waiting for the rain that comes only once in a lifetime. 100 mouthfuls of sorrow I swallowed, full of so much heartbreak, my heart now filled with sweet cream and red cherries. 100 lives lived in 100 seconds. Each one I count and taste and savor while our lips touch 100 times more. Excuse me while I find this other one. And I don't know if you're tired of hearing love poems, I can read something different, but no, okay. So this is actually very new work. And I wrote it and kind of inspired by another prompt, which is, the prompt was, how do you describe or tag somebody's dialogue? Now, that's not really the poem, but that's where all this started. And it turned out to be more, I guess, not so much of a speaking, but let me just read it to you. You'll see what I mean. I'm terrible at describing these things, but let me see if I can read it and make it better. She said, "Hello." He felt her eyes press against his spine. Stardust covered the books. She sneezed. A library shelved with kids and wives and husbands spun around each other like spaghetti with red sauce and meatballs, dinners that whispered in candlelight, all the secrets of she, of he, of we. "Hello," she said. And then the next next one in this little series is a little different. Now it escapes her lips like rain touches the pear blossoms just before they fall. I feel her voice wet and cool, barely moving the air. She presses against the side of me, as gentle as the wind on the hair of my arms, pushing closer until skin on skin, insistent to begin her downpour. And so maybe you could tell me how I'm doing on time.
We're getting down there.
Okay. Well, let me read this poem, and then maybe I'll turn to my last couple of poems. I'm sorry I paused, but the screen keeps telling me that you're gone. Now I have
We're
to find
still here.
You're still there. Okay.
Don't worry.
Becoming friends with a younger man. I watch you walk through the room like a dog with a little boy, spritzing drops of saliva on the carpet. It isn't me. I was never your inspiration for the sniffing and the sly looks, but they are disarming nonetheless. Maybe when I was younger, a hand across my waist, you would have brushed the hair from my forehead, or maybe reach across the table, only to pull back, realizing what you were doing. For me, time is nothing except the opening and closing of morning glories at dawn and dusk. It is the opening of a door, the standing of men as I enter the room, the way the titter stops as I step in. I am here, demanding you see me, friend. So I was going to move on to my last one, and I scrolled down, and I wrote one, and I called it, and y'all can let me know, should I read it? And you would have to give me a little bit of leeway because this title is a little kitschy. I may change the title, but I may just keep it just as kitschy as it is. Why did the nymphomaniac cross the road? She saw someone she thought she knew and stepped off the curb, her heart beating with every move. She thought she knew him, the way a pigeon knows its home, safely nestled and softly feathered, leaving this cold, hard world alone. She longed for the world without sex, in nights with solemn vows, before the air passed from lips, pressed hard against the bottom of a glass-bottom boat. Swim faster, breathe deep, each stroke belied by a handsome young man. The curl of lips around fingertips beckons her closer. She thought she knew him, the only lover who never touched her, sin floating just below the surface, weighty enough to hold her down, to cast red tones against her eyelids as she rose, stepping onto the street, each foot falling until the simple act complete. She saw someone she thought she knew. So thank you. So I have two short, silly ones that I like to read at the end. They are going to be in my next book, which comes out in January, called I See Them Now. And I just love these two little poems. One was written about an actual experience I had. One was just written about a silliness, I think they go with this reading. So, a boy at the gallery. I would have found him if he hadn't found me, standing apart from everything in the gallery, surrounded by suggestions of O'Keeffe with red leaves of red, or bright orange sunsets harbinger of summer's end. His bright, clear voice, in the silence it seemed loud, announcing his chicken dog dance to the silent crowd, who stood in front of paintings, pale-faced and proud. You know I made it up as he shot his arrow across the room. Yes, watching it strike the target of red, yellow, and blue. Thank you. So that was written about a little boy I met at an art gallery who pretended to shoot arrows and came up and told me he was doing a chicken dog dance, and I thought it was the most adorable thing, and I knew right away he was special. So I had to write a poem about him. The Unicorn and the Whale. What happy bedfellows the unicorn and the whale, living one on the land and the other in the sea. Magic sprouted wings. They took to the air, a cyclone spin, lifting them high, feathers bound by wax and gum, melting, melting, kissed by the sun. Their hearts beat faster until they could not hold their breath, exhaling at the wind's death and falling, like all lovers fall, piece by piece, back to earth. And that's where I'd like to leave you, back to earth. So thank you so much. And I love reading and I love sharing my poetry. And I'm just over the top. Thank you for having me, Haley. And thank you, George, for hosting. And I can't wait to hear everybody else. Oh, and I have to tell you, when I read the announcement that Haley posted and she said, these ridiculously talented poets, I said, oh, yes. How true that is. I can't wait to hear all of you. Thank you.
It's true. It's a really exciting evening. Look, thank you so much for sharing your work with us, Alissa. Now, I'd like to welcome this evening's open mic readers. We'll be hearing 2 poems tonight from each. Betsy Mars, Colette Tennant, Bonnie Proudfoot, Deni Naffziger, Leland Seese, Cynthia Anderson, Jessica Barksdale, Lynn Axelrod, Dick Westheimer, Robert Dean, and a late edition of Rick Christianson. So please take it away, Betsy.
Okay, that was really wonderful, and I've just been smiling from ear to ear. And as usual, my poems are really depressing, so I've got to wipe the smile off my face and out of my voice. But I'm glad to be the first one, so I can relax after that and listen to everyone. It's just an amazing lineup. So the first one I'm going to read was in One Art Lately, and recently it was inspired by actually a Facebook post I read about a fawn sighting, and it's called A Fawn Has No Scent. And so, like a dear mother, my parents left me curled up on the doorsteps, in the flower beds, in the rumpus rooms of others. Those with fathers who worked 9 to 5 and stay-at-home mothers who boiled hot dogs, fried bananas, bologna for lunch. I stayed quiet, asleep inside my abandonment. My mother went off to feed, to lure away danger, her scent so strong. I wore her like an invisibility cloak. I was nothing, like a horse, a colt who could get on my feet. I was safe without human interference. And then the second poem I'm going to read is the one from that was in this edition of Sheila-Na-Gig. And I realized before I came on here that I wasn't quite sure actually how to pronounce my own title. And so I looked up a bunch of audios of how to pronounce it, but I pronounce it ossuary, but apparently it can be pronounced ossuary, and ossuary, and so it's ossuary in my mind. And it was written for my stepmother, who I really adored, just died in May, and I was fortunate to be with her a lot, especially toward the end. And it was really written as a sort of love poem for her. All our differences melt, skin stretches and thins, eyes sink, submerge into interior living as the end nears. We are more alike than we seem. Surface immaterial. Foundation begins to emerge. What's most solid, more obvious as we get ready to leave our bones behind. Would I recognize you in an ossuary? Would I know myself, you and I, a pair of cast-offs, spirits flown? Thank you.
Hello. Well, it looks like there's quite the Ohio contingent there. And I was born and raised in Columbus, Ohio, and spent a lot of time in Appalachia in Ohio. And I'm in your edition of I thought I heard the Cardinal singing, with Ohio Appalachia. But I'm just, the only thing I want to say is the first poem, I'm just going to read both the ones I got in Sheila-Na-Gig. So I thought that seemed reasonable. And the first one, I'm doing a series of these speed dating poems. So this is one. I'll just start with that. Greek myth, speed dating. Number 1, are you a cat or a dog person, more Sphinx or Cherubus? 2, have you ever identified as nobody? 3, how would you hold your suitors off for years without them noticing? 4, does your favorite breakup technique include a deserted island? 5, do you buy the story that any married woman could be the most beautiful? 6, have you ever accidentally turned a woman into a tree? 7, giant wooden horse, good or bad first date gift? 8, have you ever slept with a goddess, then cried in the morning? 9, have you ever found yourself staring at a woman with curly hair? 10, do you think Helen wanted it? And then the second one in the collection, my birth great-grandfather, I was given up for adoption at birth, but I found out my birth great-grandfather lived in Versailles, Ohio. That's how they say it there. And he was a furniture maker and an undertaker. So this is based on that. Did his breath mix with the varnish? Were his cedar chests doppelgangers for his coffins? Did the creak of his hinges sound like keep, keep, keep? Did he recycle tops as coffin lids? Did his chest on chest swallow keepsakes down into darkness? Were buyers wary of his chase-long foreshadowing? Did he know the word credenza meant to check for poison? Did the keys that fit his cabinets fit his coffins too? Did he notice how furniture and tools blur body part names? Lamp neck, chair back, rocker arm, table leg, handsaw, slip joint, and needle nose pliers? And the head, neck, face, throat, eye, and cheek of a hammer? Did the spindles on his chairs look like knuckles? Did he specialize in ball and claw foot? Did he ebonize his wood until it was shiny as loss? Were his beds worrisome if they were too comfortable? Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bonnie Proudfoot, and I'm happy to be here. Haley published my book, Household Gods, and it came out just about a year ago. And it was a thrill, my first book of poems. And I just want to say, I have many of the books that the people here reading tonight have published also through Sheila-Na-Gig, and I go back to them over and over, and they're just wonderful. It's a fantastic collection to have. So I just love this press. I'm going to read a poem that I wrote exactly a year ago. And it was funny because I thought about it today when I was walking. The leaves were just flying off the trees. It's very dry here in southeastern Ohio, and it's a little bit of an early fall. And I wish I would have taken a video of it because I was walking and just twisting, curling leaves, and they were gorgeous. So that inspired this poem, and it's not in Sheila-Na-Gig. It's going to come out in Pine Mountain, Sand and Gravel when the new one emerges. It's called First Day of Fall and I Am Flying. And the title jams into the first line. First day of fall and I am flying back to Ohio. I am leaving again. She is resting. It's not like I haven't left so many times. This time she has a morphine drip. She can push the button when the pain hits. Her hand's so cold, it is almost blue. In Columbus, I feel like a non-native speaker. I ache for someone to recognize. Every road sign and shop in my little town is a reminder that I still don't know how to belong. She fits in so well. Summer in the Hamptons, the other seasons in town. She is so in love with every movie house and museum, the whole city like a perfect layer cake waiting for her at the perfect bakery. Home, I walk this country lane, see leaves rattle from the trees. The afternoon light is blinding. One child will say, that sun will be by her side when her chest heaves for the last time. I will be the leaf that swirls far from the tree. How much of a tree's pain does a leaf hold? A world made over from the dust of the world that came before. Suddenly a phone call and I am back on a plane among strangers. My eyes are closed. I am watching her swim. It's early in the morning, the water as light as the sky, one perfect stroke after another, a little white swimming cap, a small white curl of a wave. Because it is beautiful, because she loves it, because I can see myself on the shoreline, because I can keep my eyes closed and hold it close. So that's the first poem. The second poem I'm going to read tonight, thanks folks, is in the current issue of Sheila-Na-Gig, and I dedicate it to my son, who is a dad now, and it's called At Your Age, I Found the Blues. Does our skin hold memory the way we held hands, looked both ways, then moved together into traffic? Who taught me to stop? I saw the light change. I willed our four legs to step together off the curb, cross at the green, not in between. What song do you carry now? Your blonde curls turned brown, your beard streaked in gray, father to a little girl. What do you guess she'll carry? Rain, rain, she sings, go away. At your age, I found the blues, some truth that seized my throat, hung close. Even now, I'm holding my own heart out to the light, to the racing, ongoing world, reckoning in 4/4 time with my own stitched life, how to unbind the grief, how much weight to bear. When you took those first tottering steps, when you reached for my hand at the curb, it was all I could do to hold you back, though off you went, moving forward faster than ever. And rain, yes, there will be rain. That's it. Thank you very much.
Bonnie, I love those poems. Haley, thank you for publishing this poem that I'm about to read. It's in the new issue. And another thing I want to say is I don't write to you guys ever on the chat. And it's not because I don't think your poems are amazing. I'm just not a good multitasker. So if I start typing, I don't hear what you're saying. So I apologize, and I am loving these poems so much. Okay, so this poem, I'm going to put it on my computer screen, comes from the fact that I was raised in Ohio's Appalachian Steel Valley, but I never knew it was Appalachia. I come from Warren, Ohio, and no one ever told us, oh, you're Appalachian. No, never. We learned about it in school, and we called it Appalachia. So when I moved here, big wake up call. Anyway, this is called Self-Portrait in Appalachia. And it's really was a way of me figuring out, okay, I'm Appalachian. Okay. So Self-Portrait in Appalachia. I was raised in Ohio's Appalachian Steel Valley, but we never called it that. Appalachia was a cluster of small wooden structures with fake brick siding in Martin County, Kentucky, where President Johnson crouched down in 1964 on the rickety porch of Tom Fletcher with a flock of boys in worn-out shoes. Appalachia was men who were taller than they looked, hunched over, faces blacked, squinty-eyed, coming up from the mines. It was mud roads and women with big bellies and skinny legs who dropped baby after baby like flour sacks. Appalachia was not a dirty city filled with descendants of Irish and Italian immigrants who lived in mountains of industry where the sky lit up red every time Republic steel smelted. At night, I lay in bed and watched fire in the firmament above Market Street. No one ever talked about how stars sometimes ignite messages from God to a child who never listens in church, but recognizes a miracle when she sees one. Like Neil Armstrong landing on the moon or flying in a little tri-motor plane over Warren, Ohio, 36 years before he traveled into space. I drove away from home in a Plymouth Fury, heading south into Mizzle on US 77 until I reached the Hockhocking River and learned that a town named Chauncey is called Chancey, and Appalachia is Appalachia, and I better learn it or betray myself as a northern girl. It was a northern man I met by the river, a man who had grown up in the town next to mine, who first told me we were Appalachian. He wore his label like a Medal of Honor. When I had a son, he took him on long walks along railroad tracks, taught him about arrowheads, which they gathered and held in a small blue box, while a mile away, my husband and I made love in the shade of a dogwood. In this age of definition, the word suits me as well as any other, Appalachian, and I wear it like a feather. All right. And then the second poem, and also, Haley, thank you for publishing that. Is the first poem I wrote after I finished this little collection that just came out last week by Shadeland House Modern Press in Lexington. And I don't know about any of you, but when I finish a manuscript, it's really hard for me to start on the next thing. I struggle. So thank you, Haley. She saw a couple of the real crappers too, and she didn't take them. But she took that one. All right, this is called Swimming Lessons, and I've never read it before, but I really like it, and it's kind of a weird one. Swimming Lessons. I never did learn to swim at the Y with other skinny first grade girls in bright red regulation suits yanked high at the shoulders, straps wrapped tight with rubber bands. We stood like prisoners in the locker room mirror, that little V between the legs obscene, if a 6-year-old can know what obscenity is, and the concave space between the suit and groin, a humiliation. For just a minute, I cozied up to another girl for protection more than friendship, and together we made our way through humid, chlorinated air to the pool where we were tested. Like the others, I leaned forward in the water, head down, hands pressed together like the bow of a ship. One foot discreetly hopped along the bottom. The other, the stern, pretended to float. It wasn't until one day at Farmer Jim's, a man-made lake where kids splashed unattended, while mothers unpacked sandwiches and babysitters flirted with the guards, that my feet first slipped on the mossy floor and I swam by mistake. Years later, after my mother died, I dreamed we swam together in a pond. Children's voices lifted like fog, and she fell back across my arms. Her face reflected April skies, blue eyes and white hair drifting toward another season. Then I went under. How light I felt and unencumbered as I sank and swam and sailed beneath her silhouette and listened to the muffled sound of her heart, as I must have heard it long ago when I was weightless, unaware. Thank you.
All right. Well, I am humbled to be in such company. I was excited to read. Now I'm excited to listen to other people and get through this. I'm coming from way out in Seattle, and I'm very grateful to SheilaNaGig for publishing the first of the two poems I'll read. This one has rattled around for about 8 years, not 8 years getting sent out and rejected, 8 years of me picking it up and putting it down and picking it up and putting it down. And I'm sure you all know that struggle with some poems. So it's a delight to have it appear in the pages there. A Child's Grief. November speaks in menaced utterance, month of hard abandonments, language of late arriving angels. The child lies awake, awash in stealthy nightfall come too soon, first caress of fever. A maple leaf, all softness gone, color of dried blood, pecan at its points, sangria at its center. No hearth fire warm red-orange, nor far-off May, green awakening, beach breeze caressed, held in mother's arms.
Beautiful.
Thank you. This second one I picked simply because it is the opposite in it just sort of popped out, and it took a couple drafts before I felt at least like it was done. We'll see. It's out there in the world trying to find a home. But I'll say a preface about it. So I've been a pastor for 34 years, serving in Detroit, Michigan for 6 years, and then back in my hometown here of Seattle for the last 28. And so I've presided at a few more than several thousand funerals. So by the way, the furniture maker, coffin maker, dad one just knocked me out. But anyway, I recently, here in Seattle, on the left coast, things are done differently, and not many people are really churchy people. None of my friends who I grew up with go to church. And I'm struck by the absence of ritual. And so I was recently at a memorial lunch for someone who had died, but it really was just a lunch. There was no anything formal. You just came and ate and talked with people and left. And it felt, well, the poem tells how it felt. And I'll say one more thing. In the poem, I'll mention something called jenever. That's Dutch gin. A cloud of gnats. Death, the guest of honor, was a no-show in deference to the dead. Suspended in a vapor of excellent jenever, we flitted like the cloud of gnats hovered over black beluga, hummus, pickled things. The caterer, the only mourner, stood vigil wearing black. All the while, the liturgy cruised suburban cul-de-sacs in a 57 Eldorado Biarritz. We dodged the word committal altogether, eulogized instead the weather. And since there was to be no burial, nor even scattered ashes on the sound, we drifted homeward like a cloud of gnats. Thank you.
Thank you, Haley, for publishing this poem I'm going to read, and George for moderating us. Thanks to all of you who have read and are reading. It's really nice to hear these words. The poem that appeared in the latest issue is about my mother who has dementia. And even though I don't write magical realism, I have been, because we're in a totally different world these days with our conversations. And I find that I have to just kind of flow with what's going on. So this one's called The Chinese Balloon Incident. My mother tells me the moon is in danger of being shot down, erased from the sky. I saw it on the news, she says, pointing a finger toward me and then up to the night above. She says the Chinese sent us the moon, but we were too stupid to say yes. Now there is nothing aglow. the stars dissolve by circus light, the moon shot down with a clown's arrow. I agree. Tell her it will be all right. The moon will rise again as it always does, shining its bright eye. For a moment, I expect her to laugh, find the humor in the moon, the clown, the arrow, the Chinese sending the moon, maybe by parcel post. But in her gaze, a horror of the darkness, the hole around her thoughts, the promise of an orbit broken. Now her mind is a moon riddled with holes, falling through the atmosphere, a slow, dull flame on a shallow wick. This second one is, I have been doing a lot of work with Two Sylvia's Muse that comes every week, and they send a number of prompts. And I when I can, I make it a habit of doing them all each week. And this was a new form for me. It's a palindrome or a mirror poem, and I had never done one. So I thought it would be fun, and because I was obsessing about a pigeon that I saw in Italy. I had never seen this. Is a beautiful black and white pigeon, and I kept thinking that only in Italy would a pigeon look like this. So I did a mirror poem based on my pigeon. It's called Racing Pigeon. The pigeon is too beautiful for its name, but we are in Italy where garbage cans are art. Here a bird, a chiaroscuro of feathers, black and white, unlike any pigeon I've seen. Nothing gray or ringed or iridescent. This bird could hide in the sky, tucking away her red feet, of which she has only one, hobbling like Ahab, pecking my shoes. I blink, avert my eyes, not wanting to cry about an injured bird when I'm in Perugia, drinking an aranciata rossa in the afternoon, my best friend across the small table. This low moment is unreasonable, unseasonable. This spring sky, a blanket of warm blue. The bird stays close, and I Google Italian pigeons to find this is an Ascolano racing pigeon brought back from the edge of extinction in the year 900 CE. Here she is, unable to walk, yet ready to race, the ground her nemesis. This low is spring. Sky, a blanket of warm blue. I blink, avert my eyes, not wanting to cry about a one-footed bird in Perugia while drinking a blood orange soda in the afternoon, my best friend across the small table. This bird could hide while on the wing, tucking away her red feet, of which she has only one, hobbling like Ahab, pecking at my shoes. Nothing gray or ringed or iridescent. The pigeon, a chiaroscuro of feathers. We are in Italy, where garbage cans are art. The pigeon is too beautiful for its name. Thank you.
That was lovely, Jessica. Let's double back now and get Cynthia.
Thanks, George.
Don't worry.
Yeah, okay. I'm Cynthia Anderson, and the first poem I'll read is from the latest issue of Sheila-Na-Gig. Haley really surprised me by picking this one, and I'm surprising myself by reading it because it is a bit self-revealing. It's a long ago time in my life, nearly 40 years ago, and it's called Girl with a Watering Can, after the painting by Pierre-Auguste Renoir. She was the daughter I never had, with the wide face and bright eyes of her father. She came to me fully formed, and my heart broke, knowing she would never be born, lost to myself and the garden. In her blue party dress, she smiled with the simple joy of an angel. My dream sheltered her. I never had to explain that the man who helped make her was a casual sex partner, a known Casanova, someone I hooked up with every year or two for an hour or two, who would then reliably disappear. He held untold women hostage, body and soul. They all had hopes for him. One conquest, a friend of mine, asked with genuine distress, "Did you sleep with him?" And though she knew I was lying, I said no. Once I spent the night at his A-frame in the canyon, hidden among sycamores. Before dawn, a lover called, fighting, on her way over. "You better get out of here," he sighed. That was the night of non-conception, a pregnancy over as soon as begun. He never won my heart except for that moment in a parallel world where our daughter stood before me. And I felt a glimmer of what it means to be a mother, have a girl to mentor, share mysteries of seeds and water, and show how to bake an angel food cake. Separate eggs, beat the whites, fold gently into the batter, then wait while it rises sky high. And the second poem I'll read is from my book, Arrival, which Haley published earlier this year. And it's available. I think Haley just put the link up. It's also available on my website that I'll put in the chat. So this is a poem about a cactus. And it's called Golden Torch. The sun is stingy on the coast in June, but finally, through the fog, enough warmth seeps through and the golden torch bursts into bloom. From an old clay pot, the spiny columns curve gracefully upward, a sight more at home in the desert than here. Nearly every year brings a bloom or two, this year, 3. Each day we check the progress. Dark furry nubs swell to thick stems, then bud into flowers big as plates. Tender petals shimmering between the cream of camellia and crystalline snow. Inside, hundreds of tendrils tipped with pale yellow recede to the core, a deepening lime green whirl, the end of the known universe. Slender stamens claim the last triumph, rising up and out to the sky, calling the sun god to make good on his promises. And he answers. A black bee, delirious, enters the temple, sinks on the soft gold carpet, then staggers away with his hoard of happiness. Thank you.
Next up is Lynn Axelrod.
Yes, hi, thank you. It's really great to be here, and I'm overwhelmed by this work. I'll start with the poem that, I should say I'm zooming in from a coastal village in Northern California, north of San Francisco. The left coast, I guess it would be called by some. This is from this issue of Sheila-Na-Gig. Time to choose. He traded in his beloved 27-year-old coupe when the passenger harness stopped working, refused a single inch to save a life. Done, they realized. Replacement parts nowhere. No titanium, no microsurgery for this wear and tear. No friend's wreck of a good auto dock. Nothing could prolong the strap that depended on a door switch connected to the ignition, to the analog engine, to the trusted mechanic who said, "Really sorry, man." Nothing else mattered. Not the cherished red-hot chassis of his early years, bucket seats he winced dropping into, perfectly balanced sound system, none of it. because his main squeeze said she'd take the back seat only, where the belts worked, nothing off the shelf about her, he knew, and kicked a sighing tire. And the second is I have a chapbook coming out in 2024 called Lotus Earth on Fire, from Finishing Line Press. And this is one of the poems. I zoomed into the reading. Crowd listens in Zoom boxes to rounded poems, illusory life moments, supernal language. But I began to feel we were on a bus, strangers on wobbly wheels, suppressed throat clearing, unmuted, a man in his pajama top, a woman leaning off screen, signaling a pup or picking up lint. I pictured the necklace of ancient snails you gave me, night dwellers toting spiral homes on their backs, understory lives still inch dark passages beneath our feet, or surface in daylight on walls, stones, like keys to lost survival skills, spells we wander above, almost severed from earth language. Alive in my dark dresser drawer, the necklace sent me home to you and evening bullfrogs across the field, calling females to amplex, froggy style, in pond shallows. Quick silence as they slipped beneath leaves or mud. In the kitchen, roasting potatoes, purple, red, gold, baked in specks of loamy soil we grew them in, pulled them gently out of. Thank you.
Hello, all. Sorry, George. I should let you introduce. First of all, just a fabulous reading. I've been on a lot of readings lately, and the work here has just been wonderful. I'm going to take two liberties. One is to say how important it was for me to get a chance to work with Haley on my chapbook, and what a great partner she was in getting that book out. I'll let her put it up there, but she's just was so responsive as a editor and also now as a publisher of that book. The second is a real liberty, and I want to introduce, for a 30-second plug, my friend Katie Dozier. And Katie is the Rattle Prompt Poems series curator, editor. But the thing I wanted to give her an opportunity to talk about, she also hosts a Twitter space with Rattle editor Tim Green. And Haley, if you could take a little bit of time just to plug it, I'd appreciate it. You are muted.
Okay, I didn't know if I was allowed to speak or waiting for permission, but
okay.
I would say I have loved listening to all the poems so far tonight. Alissa was at the first poetry reading I ever did in person, which was in Newport, where I also met Dig Westheimer for the first time this summer. So I really, it's special to get to hear this reading and all these amazing poems. And also I was thrilled that she read one of the poems from the Rattlecast prompt. And if you are curious, it's just that every week we take the guest. So this last week's guest was Penny Harder, who's one of my all-time favorite poets. And so the prompt this week is to go ahead and write a haibun that mentions time. And so if you want to do that, you can also submit it. And then every month I get to pick one, which is really fun. And then we also have the Poetry Space, which is a podcast that I do with Timothy Green. It starts on Twitter, but you don't have to be on Twitter. And the best part probably of the whole show is that Dig Westheimer comes almost every week. and graces us with his knowledge and with his beautiful poetry reading, which I'm always striving to copy myself in my own poems. So thanks for letting me be a part of this tonight. And I love listening to all your work, and I'm really glad to see this beautiful community and get to be a little bit of a part of it tonight.
Thanks, Katie. And thank you all for indulging me. This first poem I'll read, my second poem I'll read from the issue. This first poem is sort of my habit, is the latest one that I've written. And it has two epigraphs. One is from Walt Whitman. And actually, I think, is it Lynn or Cynthia from near San Francisco that made me want to read this one tonight. First epigraph is, I wandered off by myself in the mystical, moist night air, and from time to time looked up in perfect silence at the stars. It's Walt Whitman. And the second is a word that was just recently coined called nostalgic, which I have suffered from all my life, which is those suffering from sky grief. One, we came for luminescence. The plankton here awaken late and long after the sun sets and glint beneath the still water of Tamales Bay. Like little galaxies, they spread as our hands trail over the side of the kayak, stirring eddies, slight and silent. Above, the Milky Way, like a shawl woven from silvered wool, drapes over the bare shoulder of the sky. Across to the north, a star falls. Its tail, as long as myth, persists for a full beat of breath. 1,000 lesser lights scatter, meadow flowers flung from horizon to horizon and mingle with the creatures beneath. Plankton meets stars, meets plankton, meets stars. 2, here, back home, the night sky is abraded by city lights, burned as if by bile fire. We are crowded with more hungry deer than stars, more sooted views than meadow flowers. There is no Milky Way surging from the south, no goddesses and gods of night arrayed in their mantles of pin-prick sparks. But there is a new scripture, a prayer for the nostalgic. Blessed are those who forget, which I cannot. I am cursed to have sat quiet in the night, wrapped in the perfect silence of stars, remembering. And this is the one I was so pleased to have in the edition that all of you are in. It's just wonderful to share it with y'all and to hear you read them. This is called The Turn. The fruiting season has turned again. The last of the blues hangs small as possum's eyes on the farthest 3 bushes. Even the robins have moved on, the berries plucked one at a time from the vine-like stems not worth the work. But my wife can't stand leaving, just one behind, and before I wake, she is gone to the orchard, bowl in hand, she more persistent than any bird or I could ever be. The raspberries are trying to step into the fruiting void, but spring was unkind to them, and they now yield little more than the grandkids can eat before they get back to the house, their fingers and lips painted the color of the sort of berry lust reserved for 4-year-olds. My longings are for whatever Deb brings me until the week the thorn-guarded blackberries ripen to a purple so dark that only the urgency of an older man feels can match them. They are as sour and sweet and unsure as I am, when the very last bowl of blues Deb holds seems like an offering to a god other than me. Thank you all.
Well, first of all, I'm so glad that Rick got added on, because I was dreading being the final reader on this great roster and having to follow everybody else. So thank you, Rick, for jumping in there. Now the weight's on you. so many Ohio poets here. The only connection I have with Ohio is I started out in the music business, and I spent 3 weeks playing a country club in an east side suburb of Cleveland. It was somewhere around Shaker Heights, and it was owned by the Cleveland Mafia. And I learned many things during that 3 weeks, one of which is that Mafia country clubs do not have golf courses. Anyway, I'm coming to you from Augusta, Kansas. The first poem I'm going to read is the one that was in the recent Sheila-Na-Gig edition, and it's titled Bethesda. We are at the podiatry clinic, and we are old and lame and waiting for Jesus in a white coat to lay on hands and make us walk, shed our canes, support hose, trim our toenails, wash our feet, set us on the path to extremity unction. We wonder what we have done to deserve this, to lie at the sheep gate, watch others go down to the pool before us, to shamble so pitifully the face of the earth. We wonder when we became so old, so lame, so blood-cursed, when time came up and bit us in the ass, booted us from stroller to walker, how long before we need the wheeled chair, before our legs are fodder for the slaughterhouse, before we rot with bed sores and stink like the near dead. And the nurse calls our names and we shuffle, scuffle, motor, and contort our way to the pool, shocked at how much like a youthful us God is, shocked at the quick nip of the clippers, the certainty of inserts, injections. Walk out the gate, not healed, not taking up our bed, tears of grace kissing each step. This is part of a series I'm working on. I love to do phrastic work. My second book was all phrastic. And I'm doing a series right now to photographs taken by the Pittsburgh poet Jason Baldinger, who I know some of you know. And we're hoping to end up with a chapbook, at least manuscript, or short full-length book manuscript, his photos and my text. And this is one that was published by the October issue of McQueen's Quinterly, and it's been nominated for what I think it's called Best Spiritual Writing Awards. Used to have another name, but that's what they call it now. Orison Books is the publisher. Jason just titles his photos by where he takes them. This is just titled Roadside New York. The poem I wrote to it is called Breath of the Lord. Whisper strokes the beard of earth, rolls in on clouded chariots, stutters through the break of trees, neglect of weeds, a sotto voce of times past, lives moved on, the arterial bypass of freeways from one congested part to another, the lowered pulse of voided humanity, the spaces we left behind, the endangered species of memory. This is what I hear in the dooryard of my 71st year, approaching the tumble-down patchwork of what's to come, calling out hellos to the shadowed door mouth, blinded eye windows, at last recognizing the save me handiwork emblazoned under the eave, the scroll that made me stop and get out of the car, realize at just the moment I knock that this is the place from which I embarked. No longer does a voice cry out in the wilderness. I have prepared the way, and when the door opens, I flicker like candles' breath across the face of the waters. Thank you.
Wow. It is so wonderful to be here. Looking around this Hollywood Squares room, so many of you have been guests on SpoFest. So I just feel like I've left the living room and gone into the den. So thank you for including me here tonight. I'm only going to read one. This is a poem that's going to be coming out pretty soon. Many of you are probably familiar with the Poetry Ex Hunger Project. Hylam LaRue is doing it. In fact, one of the poems just got picked by the Save the Children Foundation for their new international 30-second spot. So it's pretty cool. It is full of beautiful poetry. And I had been asked to write one, and I have. And most of the poems in it, they're gorgeous, but they're poems written by the haves to the have-nots, if you will. You know, it's like, you know, if words were wheat, no one would be hungry. And I wanted to write a poem from a different perspective. And so here you go. It's called Fish Sticks. Nobody talks about the anger. Hungry? Take what you need. Grab what you want. Kids laugh at the white paper lunch sack filled with pilfered snacks from the liquor store. Slim Jims, beef jerky, Hostess apple pie. I brought my lunch teacher. I made it myself. Nobody talks about the anger. It was a picnic wherever they were staying. The meal arrayed in her lap, cold, torn bits of sliced wiener stuck to saltines or sourdough heels. The children circle her chair as her chicken hand dispenses each bite, gaping mouths, chomp, chew, swallow, take a sip of her tab cola. Nobody talks about the anger. Crash the birthday party at the park. Blend in. I know him from school. I forgot to bring my present. Is the vegetable platter just for the grown-ups? Will there be cake? Can I take a piece to my brother? Nobody talks about the anger. At the Dairy Queen, at the end of the night, leftovers go into the dumpster. It's all still warm. Sometimes they throw it away in bags. That makes it easier. Nobody talks about the anger. 4 Sea King fish sticks, 1 slice of Kraft cheese, a bun if you were lucky, a packet of tartar sauce snatched from the condiment rack at the 7-Eleven. Taste this fillet of fish. Nobody talks about the anger. Rather be hungry than have to be grateful. Sad doe eyes of observant adults, their pity swimming as they try to not feel superior. 3 years old, and I might snatch something off of your plate, even if I don't know you. Thank you.
Great poem to end on, Rick.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, everybody. This has been an amazing reading. Thank you, Alissa. Wonderful poems, everybody. Just terrific. And thank you for putting up with, my mistakes here and, trying to move it along. But it's really been a wonderful evening, as all these Sheila-Na-Gig readings are. So we look forward to seeing you again.